Hello and welcome to Shar's Craft Haven. This is going to be my final video in the XCS beta testing for the Laserbox Startup Pro and Rotary Edition. This might be a little bit long. I'm going to go through their feedback form and share with you some of my thoughts and where I think the project is. Hopefully, most of these things, or a lot of these, by the time they do an open beta, they'll be addressed and you won't have to deal with these bugs. Again, that's the purpose of a beta, is to get it in users' hands, have them break it, have them find little quirks, so the software team can fix them. So first off, expectations. So what I was hoping would happen during each stage, and then what I experienced. So first off, searching for inspiration. That was pretty easy. I start off with some simple projects, just doing simple engraving, just see how things work. Preparing the files, is great. There wasn't importing, there wasn't the same scaling issue with SVGs that there have been with the current Laserbox software. Connecting was easy. There's a different timing cycle I've noticed, and so about 30 seconds after starting up the machine, it'll beep again. Mine's on USB, so it'll beep that it's connecting to USB, the machine will beep that it connects, and then a little bit after that, it'll show up in the software as able to be connected. So my first test, I didn't really do a lot of editing. Later tests, I found that my expectation was to be able to do node work, to be able a lot less of a pass through, which was what the current software is, and so couldn't do the fine detail that I had hoped to do. And then processing parameters, there aren't material profiles. That's a deal breaker for me. I have 15 to 20 material profiles. I use a lot of different materials. I need to be able to select my settings and not have to have a spreadsheet and to input it. On the plus side, opening the machine, closing it doesn't affect, after a job's over, it doesn't clear the settings, so that is great. Overview of results. My hope was that I'd get great engraving, that things would, be much better, that there would be dither, I had middle to high expectations of this being more than a pass-through, but a great beginner designing program. So what I experienced, I have some experience with it already with other Xtool machines, but as a new user, having to click on image to open a file, there's some UI confusion that doesn't make sense, that isn't similar to other programs. So how things are laid out, you need to click on image to be able to import any file regardless of what type it is. Preparing, there are missing functions. So node editing, eventually I found that there's a way to curve nodes, but that's not easily apparent. Text to path functions, I'm not seeing those. Welding, some of those bread and butter node tools are either hard to find or are missing. Like I said, with connecting, it took a bit longer. I didn't try wireless, and Ethernet is not implemented in this version. And then editing design, it's lacking a lot of tools. Dither didn't work for me. Picture editing was choppy or missing, things like cropping, changing the DPI. Basic things that I would expect it to have were not present. Parameters, this is a big deal. Being able to quickly create a project, select your material, have everything in there is a base bones kind of thing. In my testing, I did some Lightbird G-code, and going through Lightbird, there was a learning curve to it, but the tools were there. Almost all the tools I was looking for, I could find or have confidence that it is in there, and that it's just user error not knowing where it is yet. I really am hopeful that they'll expand the Lightburn compatibility, and again, I'm really I really hope that they do that for the P2 as well, the next machine that's also going to be an XCS. So processing outcomes, the time estimate is in seconds and the elapsed time is in minutes and seconds. And so that was a challenge doing the mental math. The estimates are high. I don't think I had a single project that went the full estimated time. So it'd say 700 seconds, it'd be done in, 5 minutes. So the estimates were off, the estimates are high. They need to be in minutes and seconds for the estimate, and they need to be in minutes and seconds for the time elapsed, so you can compare, especially if you're doing a project over and over again, you're needing to bill somebody, you need to be able to know how long things are taking. I did my scores for each of these. I won't read those out, but I will, talk about my justifications for each. So under file prep, designing an XCS, it felt very limited. It felt very elementary. It felt a little simpler than Paint. Those of you that are certainly Microsoft Paint, there are basic features missing, and I feel like it was to the point where I'm used to Inkscape, I'm used to more advanced things, and it really stifled my creativity. So I spent more time figuring out where things were or if I could even do them than being able to actually be creative in the software. So hopefully they fill those in. I know some of the features, there's a hope and a plan to do so. The next one, so connecting the machine was straightforward. Being able to import G-code would be the one thing I'd say it needs to be more prominent, not hidden on a settings workflow page. If this is something that's core, if this is something that is a big feature to be able to import G-code, it needs to be on the design page. So next, editing. This was probably where I was most disappointed of all. Wasn't robust design. It wasn't even simple. Lacked basic functions. There are more missing features than I think even are in the other versions, the M1 and D1. Again, it's possible it's got most of those things. I hope they implement everything equally among the platforms, and that it gets it up to a level of basic design at minimum, and that more features are added. So then material profiles, like I said, there are bugs like dither didn't work at all for me. Most of the ones that I did for XCS, which are on the right side, did not work at all. I stopped those. My last ditch effort, which turned out pretty well with XCS, I ended up processing it in Imager, so I think Imager takes most of the credit, and then I ran it twice because, again, the settings are different, and so I ran it once with 80 lines per centimeter to try and replicate light burn, but that didn't work, and then I ran it again with the same power and speed with the higher lines per centimeter, and that ended up being the most decent of all the things, but most of the XCS engraving was, picture engraving was not worth it. Here are some of the tests I did. Basic engraving, it did fine through XCS. Any attempt to do dither, there's another bug I found where there's a blank spot. Having the speed crippled at 130, I have no idea why it's doing that, but that caused, the side effect of a really deep engrave, which I think could be cool for certain materials you're wanting to take a bunch away, but for most purposes, you're not going to be wanting to remove a bunch. So that speed bug, I need to be able to go 300, 265 millimeters per second. I need to be able to use more power to, to make, I don't want to put it this way, but, time is money. And if I am not able to use my full speed for engraving due to software constraints, then my machine is less valuable to me. So processing outcome, like I just said, aside from shapes, cutting happens before engraving. The air assist remains on during engraving. I stopped trying to do cut and engrave because of that bug, and it was messing things up. Yeah, so the saving grace, I guess, for outcome was being able to utilize the G code. Lightburn, though a steeper learning curve, had a lot of the features I was hoping would be in XCS, and a lot more. So my final walkthrough. So bugs, those kind of things. So file prep, it's not a bug, but lack of features. Connecting was fine. I really like that you could, at any point, click on a button to refresh the picture. I thought that was really helpful, much better. I would love to be able to have a feed. So, streaming G code is sort of the one of the terms. So, continual connection with the laser, so that you can monitor what's going on. I know that's probably not likely, but that would be nice. Editing design, UI needs an overhaul. Node tools that are there that I found at the very end need to be much more apparent. Things like being able to go back to the design screen, which a lot of people wanted to do while a job was going. You had to right click and you had to figure it out. It needs to be a button. If it's a feature, it needs to be prominent. It needs to be advertised. It needs to be equally, easily accessible. So material profiles, I gotta say it again. It's a no-brainer. I'm surprised that it wasn't implemented at all, and it's bare bones. If you don't have material profiles, you're wasting your time, and the software is not commercial grade in any sense. Without those very basic user functions, you shouldn't need to be typing in settings every time. That's pretty ridiculous. So then overall come my overall feelings, bugs and things. I'm happy for Lightburn. I hope that they pursue full support of Lightburn. I think that allows people an option as XCS improves, as Xtool, gets things together. It gives people another option. Without Lightburn G code, I think that my ratings for everything would be much lower. Having the ability to go around the lack of features, to go around a lot of those things, and still operate the machine via that, it saved this project for me. The caveat to that is it's a bit of a pain, lining things up. I can't use material the same way that I do with the camera, and so if there's not full integration, then that's a big problem going forward. P2 and future projects. I made a grid. I could do basic placement, but to really use what this is supposed to be, a smart desktop machine, it needs more than what's currently available. So in short, I think there's a lot of improvements from the current Laserbox software. I think there's a long way to go before I put this in the hands of all Laserbox users, and continuing the integration with Lightburn. So hopefully it's helpful. Hopefully some of you are inspired by some of the videos I've had. As always, like, subscribe. I have Amazon affiliate links for a lot of the things I use with the machine. So my ventilation system, cleaning. If you want to check out any of those other videos, that would be super helpful. I'm not going to be producing almost daily videos after this, but if there are topics, feel free to join the Facebook group Shar's Craft Lounge to get in on the monthly live streams and also to find community and ask questions about your machine. So, as always, have fun lasering.